let's start the show. It has been quite a while since Cyberpunk 2077 was released. It was broken, buggy, and nowhere near the quality that everyone expected from CD Projekt Red. It hurt their stock price, ruined their reputation, and practically made every single top 10 list on the worst video game launches of all time. Then Studio Trigger released the Cyberpunk Edgerunners anime in 2022, and that pretty much saved the genre. It wasn't long before CD Projekt Red released a massive bug fix that single-handedly repaired Cyberpunk 2077. All is forgiven, right? Here's the thing. As a musician, you only have one chance to make a good first impression on your audience. For me personally, there are people who don't come to see me play music because a previous show I did with another band wasn't to their liking. It's not fair, but unfortunately, that's a fact of life. So when I decided to play Cyberpunk 2077 on my original model PlayStation 4 in February 2022, I was already aware I was in for a bumpy ride. By all accounts, it was the worst version of Cyberpunk 2077 to play. However, the game had been out for a year at that point, and I'm poor. So when my local library was willing to let me play this game for free, I was going to sit through it and let it shape the entire experience of one of the most controversial games within the past decade. Sit down with me as I review what is arguably the worst version of Cyberpunk 2077. Here we go. Cyberpunk 2077 was released to the general public on December 20th, 2020 on all major consoles plus PC. It was developed by CD Projekt Red and directed by, oh god do I hate these last names. Forgive me if I screw this up. Adam Badovsky, Konrad Tomaskevich, and Gabe Amatangelo. It was written by Marcin Blancha and Tomasz Marchuka. Cyberpunk 2077 tells the story of V, an up-and-coming edgerunner who basically gets in way over their head. For this particular playthrough, my V was female with a massive V winds up befriending Jackie Wells, who is also wanting to hit the big time in the exciting world of freelance mercenary work. Both of you work for a local fixer, Dexter Deshawn. Dexter wants you to pull off a heist at a swanky hotel. The target is the son of the head of the Arasaka Corporation. Long story short, everything gets completely foobar. V now has to spend the rest of the game dealing with the consequences of their actions and figure out what they're going to do about it. Along the way, you'll run into prominent characters like Johnny Silverhand, played by our Lord and Savior Keanu Reeves, an AI idol who may have some demons in her closet, and of course, since this is a future dystopia, a possibly sentient vending machine. Now, there is a lot of plot-related stuff that I am leaving out. However, my goal is to not spoil what I review unless there's something that requires me to do a deep dive on it. For the most part, Cyberpunk's primary plot is well written and affected me emotionally while I was playing it. I contemplated V's journey and debated the choices I had made, which resulted in the ending that I got. The problem that I have with the story, however, are tied to the story elements introduced before we take the job with Dexter Deshawn. The game shows you originally meeting Jackie Wells and basically fast forwards your relationship up to taking that gig. It's obvious from the writing that the game wants the player to see Jackie as a chum, but as a result of fast forwarding it, it's hard to grow attached to someone you've only known for maybe 30 minutes. It's one of those, oh, well, that's a shame. Anyway, moving on. When things get foobar, you want to have that emotional connection, and while you might get it later, in that important moment, you don't. Another thing that I'm not too much of a fan of was how Lifepaths were implemented. So, Lifepaths are basically your character's backstory leading into the main quest line. They don't really factor into the game, which was a shame because I spent time planning out the type of person that I wanted my V to be. Were they going to be nomadic? A person living on the outskirts of society who doesn't care for augmentations and enjoys their own personal freedoms? Was I going to be a city kid who spent their life growing up being molded by the harsher parts of Night City? Or was I going to pick the life of a corpo who was born into money, but their entire life is practically in the hands of a company they work for? In the grand scheme of things, it didn't really matter. It kind of reminds me of playing a pickup game of Dungeons and Dragons. Sure, you have a backstory, but we're not going to explore it because I have other people here, and the main draw is the campaign that I've been planning out. Except, Cyberpunk isn't a pickup game of D&D at a convention. It's a single-player storyline in an open-world sandbox. You kinda want the feeling that the narrative is tailor-made for your avatar, but it's not. The world of Cyberpunk 2077 is a burgeoning dystopia. To the wealthy, it's a place where the sky's the limit. To the poor and unlucky, you're either living on a mountain of garbage or your corpse will wind up there. The inner streets are crime-ridden wastelands with street gangs ruling boroughs, and the police primarily serving the needs of the wealthy. So, basically, this is a conservative vision of the future. Quite honestly, there are heavily armed medics who arrive on the scene via attack helicopter, so long as you have the cash to pay for the insurance premiums. Meanwhile, getting onto an elevator, you're hit with a deluge of advertisements for the latest firearm, or sexual enhancer, or a place where you can have sex and shoot people. Welcome to Florida! Now, in the world of Cyberpunk, people augment their bodies with the latest cyberware to become faster, stronger, more visually appealing, and also to be more efficient. Why carry a cell phone when you can have one built into you? While it's once again bordering on dystopia, the concept of Night City is incredibly appealing to me. I like futuristic metropolises with multiple races and cultures mixing together, so being able to witness a glimpse, although an incredibly distorted glimpse, of that in media is appealing to me and one of the reasons why I legitimately wanted to own Cyberpunk 2077. All of that seems perfectly fine, but then we get into the internal workings of Cyberpunk 2077, the gameplay mechanics. What is being sold to us is billed as the future, the evolution of modern gaming, but at its heart, it's really just the same kind of stuff we're used to and have seen in other games like Fallout 4, Thief, Dishonored, etc, etc, etc. And don't get me wrong, I'm okay with the idea of same old, same old. In fact, the other game I was looking forward to at roughly the same time was Vampire the Masquerade 2 Bloodlines. My point being that you can implement these gameplay mechanics and make them seamless and fun to pull off. My earliest memory of something going wrong was entering a training program where the game tries to familiarize you with the game mechanics. The moment we went into hand-to-hand combat training was the start of my issues. More specifically, B needed the enemy AI to aggressively attack in order to pull off a counter, but the enemy would constantly cancel at the last second and dodge backwards. Flash forward a day later, and I had enough patience to trick the AI into actually getting me to finish the tutorial. Luckily, I didn't have any issues from gameplay mechanics afterwards. However, it's quite odd to play a game where they supposedly give you the ability to play your way, but then at the same time won't allow you to stealth kill someone because they're over-leveled compared to you. My producer Scott enjoyed remote hacking everyone and wrecking shop without going loud, whereas I liked stealthily knocking out guards as opposed to killing them and hacking cameras. And when things got loud, using a high-powered rifle that can take enemies out from a distance. When my engineering was at a high enough level, that rifle could shoot through walls. To those of you who heard about my build and are raising your eyebrows, I'll explain it. Cyberpunk 2077, at the time of me originally playing it, had the worst stealth build perks I have ever seen in a modern video game. It's good if you plan on using throwing knives and poison, but once again, my goal was to get in, go unnoticed, try not to kill everyone, and get out stealthily. If that failed and we had to go loud, everyone dies before they reach mid-range. Unfortunately, the game's idea of a setup for stealth, aka cool, is having your ranks determine dialogue options which can trigger non-violent outcomes, instead of letting you act as a silent, unseen assassin. So just to clarify, whereas most games have stats in the forms of strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, and charisma, Cyberpunk 2077 has body, cool, intelligence, reflexes, and technical ability. The cool stat, intended to represent a character's resilience, composure, and effectiveness in operating from stealth, is in practice ridiculously broad to the point where it'll have combat skills that you might not utilize, but need to put points in order to unlock better perks. At the time of me originally posting this, the stat screen has undergone multiple redesigns. In fact, a few hours before I finished my playthrough, Cyberpunk 2077 revamped its stat system into something a little bit more manageable, yet still needed work. To some degree, I find it quite odd that the cool stat can affect dialogue, but that's just me. Once you complete the introductory mission with Dexter Deshawn, the rest of Cyberpunk 2077 opens up, and this is the part where my base level PS4 practically died. It's not the fact that the game had to load in textures that's the issue. For me, I'm all about performance. I can be perfectly content with a meh-looking game so long as it runs smoothly enough to play it, especially in games where timing is incredibly important, like sports games or even fighting games. Yet Cyberpunk 2077 came out for most consoles. So if I get on a motorcycle and go at top speed on the highway, the game will attempt to load in assets like cars, but they'll load in way too close. Basically, Cyberpunk 2077 has rendered me into the gameplay equivalent of Detroit Rock City by Kiss. Whoa my god, no time to turn. I got to laugh cause I know I'm going to die. Why? All that's left is to have me catapulted into the stratosphere like Team Rocket, or worse, wind up driving underneath the car and flipping it like a burger. While I did enjoy my time in Night City, I eventually hated the problems associated with driving and would instead fast travel when I could. Obviously, the game crashed on me many times throughout my playthrough. It quite honestly was not well suited or optimized enough for the PlayStation 4. And the fact that CD Projekt Red knew that is very alarming. At some point in the game, you wind up getting Johnny Silverhand's Porsche and proceed to drive to Afterlife in order to complete a mission. The moment I met the NPC for the quest in front of the bar, the Porsche was deleted and I had no means of completing the quest. If I tried to walk away in an attempt to respawn the car, the mission would consider me out of bounds and would automatically result in a game over screen. This is further aggravated by the fact that this exact quest is one of the ones I needed to unlock a suicide run on Arasaka. I was able to get all other endings except for that one because of this glitch. The soundtrack of Cyberpunk 2077 was varied and had plenty of unique work for both established artists like Run the Jewels and Grimes to original pieces made specifically for the game. The main overall track selection helps capture this crumbling society on the brink of collapse. Loud booming bass sections, haunting synth sections, orchestral vocal harmonies, and electronic drum kits are used to bring V's tale to life. My personal favorite standout from Cyberpunk 2077's soundtrack happens to be Onino's Make Me Feel Better, which felt like Nine Inch Nails decided to forego being dark and industrial and create a really kick-ass party anthem. When you break it down, Cyberpunk 2077 had the elements of a good game. The combat was nothing new, but its story beats, its characters, and its world had me mesmerized. I felt strong pangs of sorrow at some of the endings which had immersed me despite the game's performance issues. In the world of Night City, there is regrettably no such thing as a happy ending. Every person is but a bittersweet footnote in this futuristic dystopian pulp noir book of life. It means something that I'm able to praise a game that by all accounts continually aggravated me. Cyberpunk 2077 was rushed out the door way too early in order to make shareholders happy. A game which warns about a world where the rich and powerful run everything around them into ruin, and yet was made by a company who severely tarnished their long-standing good reputation, overworked their employees with crunch time, and still had what is arguably considered the worst video game launch in history. At this point in time, Cyberpunk 2077 has been patched and is considered to be leaps and bounds better than the launch version. Despite that, I'm not going to play it all over again. It's very rare that I'll bust out a game that I didn't enjoy just to play through an update. The bad taste will always be in my mouth, regardless of how much sauce you tried to add after the fact. Funny enough, this is the same response I had with Mass Effect 3, a game which had built up a lot of fan goodwill throughout most of its story only to bungle everything up at the last moment, thereby destroying the joy and excitement I had staying up until 2 AM to get to that point. Electronic Arts received so much community backlash from Mass Effect 3 that they had to add an epilogue to their game, to which I never bothered going back to because I don't want to give Electronic Arts any more of my finite time on this earth. The problems with Cyberpunk 2077 in my mind are 100% a failure of management and executives who treated this game like shovelware fit only to be rushed out the door instead of a carefully crafted magnum opus. Marcin Nowitzki should absolutely be ashamed and reminded of this failure for the rest of his video game career. Not as a means of bullying, but as a reminder of what happens when unbridled hubris f***s corporate greed in a Denny's parking lot. The developers who had worked on this game absolutely didn't want to be forced to release it in this state, and yet had no choice but to do so anyway. Cyberpunk 2077 was once again released in such a mess that it took the Cyberpunk Edgerunners anime to breathe life back into the intellectual property. I'm frustrated because I saw what Cyberpunk 2077 could have been. Sure, it wouldn't have been a masterpiece by any stretch, but it was en route to being a very good game. It's a game that, at the time of this recording, is almost 5 years old and yet still costs $80 Canadian plus taxes, which is what it originally launched at. I can't tell you what to do with your money, but to me, it feels morally and ethically wrong to support this game financially. To the point where I don't even know if I'm ever going to play another CD Projekt Red game. Sure, they have The Witcher, but that franchise never truly spoke to me. And yet, surprisingly enough, this somber, bittersweet note that leaves me jaded and frustrated with this game actually encompasses the downer tone of the game's plot. So in that spirit, I'm going to leave you. I'm SonicMTD. Good night and good luck. This video was proudly supported by Unsung Heroes of Patreon. Hey everybody, Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD, saying thank you so much for catching my review of Cyberpunk 2077, and oh my god, this video took so long to make! Oh, sorry, just behind the scenes, I've been working on this video for like 2 years now, and I am tired and my hands are bugging out, and I am not going to do anything to fix it in post-production. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this video, and leave me a comment in the comments down below so that I may grow. If you look up here on this side of the webpage, it'll be whatever YouTube recommends that you want to watch. Down here is going to be a playlist of my previous videos, so if this is your first time that you've seen me, maybe you want to see more. But either way, holy crap, the video is done. My name is Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD. Arigato gozaimasu. Later days, I am out.